This just in, the Gen Zs from Kenya are taking to the streets to fight for their rights.
Reject your bill, reject your bill, reject your bill.
This is a message to the Kenyan government. The one thing you have failed to realize about this generation is that we view things very differently.
I love Gen Zs. I really love them because they are fearless, they are expressive, and nothing is stopping in their way.
How do you tear gas a body?
I'm here for Kenya, I'm here for my people, I'm here for your rights.
Apathetic, apolitical, more concerned with hashtags and TikTok trends than the real world. We've all heard that description of Gen Z, but in Kenya, they are at the forefront of change. I'm Anelise Borges, and in today's show, we explore what made young Kenyans go from behind their screens and into the streets. We begin this episode in Nairobi, from where Brian Obra, a Kenyan film director documenting the protests, sent us this account. Just a warning, though, some viewers might find the scenes shot by Brian upsetting.
For me, it all began as an opportunity to be part of history. This was a revolution by a generation they had termed as just keyboard warriors, but these were people ready to put some bite into their back, right?
Kenya is our country.
Put a mic on the faces of everyone on the streets, and they tell you word for word what they were advocating for, and this was huge for me. So, and the fact that they also let me and my camera into the spaces, I was just happy to participate. All of that changed when I saw the first person drop. And I knew this was different. This was not it. And I knew also I had to shelf everything I was feeling in that moment. Just for that moment, I had to shelf it. Shelf it, but listen to where it leads me. I needed to find something that I will show people and tell them, this is exactly what I felt. I hope you can feel this, because this is exactly what I felt. And that's what I did. I just ran with it. Running with it meant finding the rawness, capturing the rawness of everything happening around me, right? Just so that I could sit and tell people, this is what happened in the truest and purest of forms. And one of those moments was when I ran into this medic who was coughing, running out of the gate, heading straight to where the cops were. So I just followed. And I think that dialogue is something that's going to stick with me for quite some time.
Niko na wagonjwa, watu wa gunshots karibu 10 na askari wenzenu.
Ndio tutaua wengine wengi. Enda chukua wengine. Sawa. Kutoka.
Ati utaua wengine wengi.
I think the measure of this protest is down to perspective. Whether it was a success or a failure, down to perspective. But the one thing no one can deny is the little seed of hope that has been planted. The hope that a nation can have a unified voice. No tribe, no affiliations, no political parties, no region, no voting blocks. A unified voice for the betterment of the country, led by the younger generation. I don't see what else can give you hope.
And to discuss what this means for the future of Kenya, we have three prominent voices from the movement joining us live from Nairobi today. The People's Watchman, Boniface Mwangi, a photojournalist who made the move into the political realm. Wanjiru, co-founder of the Mathare Social Justice Center. And Kasmuel Mcoure, a musician who's taken to the streets to join the protests. Thank you all so much for being part of the conversation today. Boniface, you've been a part of the Kenyan political landscape for some time now, and you have been out in the streets in the past few weeks. Many people are saying that this particular movement is historic. Would you agree? And how is this different from the period when you started your activism?
When I began my journey, it was a lot of old people in the space, and this particular one is just a lot of young people, barely 20 years old or 21 years old. Some of them have voted in their life, but they really care about the interests of this country. And they came out without, in the past, you have to print placards, T-shirts. They made their own things. They had placards, they had medics on the road. There's a unity and love in the streets that has never been there before. It's almost a party atmosphere to change the country, where they're just saying, you know what, we don't agree with what the government is doing, and they're doing this in a very peaceful way. And if you look at the caliber of the people in the streets, are the ones who feel like their parents betrayed them. Their parents never stood up when there was trouble or when there was dictatorship. So they're saying, you're not our parents, and we're going to stand up for our rights. So the majority actually are not even paying taxes, but they can see the effects of the bad taxation in their families. They can see how the finance bill is going to destroy the livelihoods of their parents and those they look up to. And also there's another level of anger in those young people. It's the lies that we've been told for a long time. They are asking for accountability. You've been collecting money from us. Where does the money go to? Something our parents never used to do.
It's very interesting. And Wanjira, I wanna take your point here, because we know that this particular wave of protests started because of that tax bill, but there are other grievances, as Boniface was just mentioning. Why did you decide to take to the streets? What is moving you right now?
Thank you. I'd like to agree with Boniface and actually say that the finance bill protest was like the catalyst, but there have been other issues that have been eating us as the young people of Kenya. There's been corruption, there's been wanton impunity, absolute disregard for the rule of law and the constitution. My community where I come from, Mathare, the people were violently evicted after the floods that we had just experienced. And actually the first day of the flooding was, the first day of the protest was us going to protest against those evictions as we protest the finance bill. And that kind of gained momentum with the consequent protest. But it was about saying we're not going to sit and watch as leaders mislead us and take our future from us and mistreat us and violate us even more and more in terms of now this very punitive finance bill that was promising to make our lives even more difficult in a situation where there was a high cost of living, in a situation where the money that was already being collected from the previous budget was not doing the service delivery it was meant to be. We had seen the doctors go on streets. We had seen the teachers go on streets. That punitive finance bill was promising to take food from school-going children, was promising to make the life of young girls and women even more difficult. We are pushing for free sanitary pads. This bill is pushing for taxing pads, making life even more difficult for young girls where I come from and other informal settlements of Nairobi. So this was a culmination of many things. This was like a boiling point, but Kenyans have been seeing how the political elites have been mistreating the people, passing bills that are anti-people. And this is an administration that had promised to make life better for the common Mwananchi. It was priding itself as the freedom is coming, as a bottom up, as selling hope to the future, to the people. But when they got into power, it was very clear that these are the enemies of the people. And this
Indeed,
is why
this administration was supposed to be a break away from the past, from the political elites, the more traditional political elites, isn't it? Kasmuel, do you agree that Gen Z is at the forefront of this particular movement? And would you say that this is a convergence of different classes, different walks of lives, but that they have this in common, that the vast majority of people in the streets are young?
It is true that the vast majority of the people on the streets are young people, but I do not want to necessarily brand it exclusively a Gen Z affair, because this has also been scoped by the political class to try and, it's the new tribalism, because when it started, even the top economic advisors to the president used to call us digital Wanjiru, forgive my language. They used to call us rowdy, cool kids. And then when things got serious and people occupied parliament, that next weekend, they realized that because these are tribeless, leaderless, fearless people, then we suddenly became our children. The problem I have with this is the infantilization of fellow Kenyans exercising their political rights. And when we take it just as that trope, I do not have a problem with the rest of the world, the rest of us identifying as Gen Z, but we have marched against this bad governance with our parents. We've marched with people who are much older. I remember we've marched with Bonnie, and Bonnie is the stuff that we used to read about in high school. And I'm very proud that I've gotten to march with him because of the courage that he planted in us. And I feel like if we just let it be an exclusively Gen Z affair, it's become the new tribalism. It's become the thing where now the trope is they're forcing the younger people because they think we are not knowledgeable enough to listen to them. And they realize they cannot divide us according to class because the economy is also already doing so badly. A lot of us are unemployed regardless of wherever you come from. So as long as you have any bit of class consciousness, there's a whole deal of unity there. So when we started, on Tuesday, there were very young, many young people. On Thursday, young people. And as it grew, when we got to Thursday, we would find people. There were very beautiful scenes where our father met his son on the streets, where our parents gave us resources. The people who run the companies that people work for granted the offs and those kinds of things. So it is a thing which has awakened a clarity in class consciousness, the political elite. They've woken up to their lies because while this government presented itself as the darling of the people, they also have a lot of blood in their hands. They also have a lot of corruption in their past, things that we should have held them accountable for. But because people were mostly just playing the politics of party and tribes and not issue-based things, we've gotten to the point where it has boiled over and it can no longer sustain itself. As we all know that nowadays, empire do not crumble because of invasion by other nations, but they crumble upon the weight of their stupidity. And Kenya is a clear microcosm and a true depiction of that, where we're seeing a government that even if we let it just be, even if we did not go on the streets, a government that would crumble on the weight of its own stupidity and inefficiency.
You bring some very interesting points into the discussion. Thank you very much. I do find very interesting what you mentioned about the government trying to diminish this movement because there are so many young people involved. You also touched on the fact that this is a leaderless, decentralized movement. And we did see it online that a few people have an issue with that. Take a look.
We need leaders as Gen Z, and this is why. Let us say we need to effect change. How do we effect change? We put out proposals. Who present these proposals to relevant authorities? Our leaders, right? So, if those proposals are not taken care of, now we go to the streets and we go to the social media because these things amount to pressure. When the pressure increases, change is effected, right? So if we do not have leaders, how do we effect change? And no revolution has ever been successful without a leader to lead them. Now we are not in the streets, we are quiet. Who is effecting our change?
Bonnie, you were smiling there. I want your take here. What is your reaction on this? But also on the idea that many people are talking about now, perhaps pausing the movement for a while. Do you think this is a right strategy?
So there's no one to pause for them. There's no one to call for the pause because there's no leader to do that. The reason why they want a leader in the movement or leaders in the movement is to get someone to kidnap or abduct or take to court or even victimize or even bribe. Some of the people who are part of the movement silently have been bribed to be quiet or being bribed to do things for the government. So the government is looking for people to compromise. But when you don't have a leader in the movement or when you don't have let's say someone saying I'm the one leading, then you have to deal with the groupthink. And the groupthink is very clear that our president made some promises when he was campaigning. Our president made some promises last year when he passed last year's budget, but he hasn't fulfilled any of those. He promised affordable housing, as Wanjira said, but he went and demolished poor people's homes. So the demands for the movement are very clear and very loud. At this particular moment, we moved from saying, reject the finance bill, which was rejected, to fire your entire cabinet for failing to deliver. So the movement has leaders, and the people are speaking. They're just not conspicuous, or they don't take the mantle of that leadership because they don't want to get killed. Because this country, in the last 2 weeks, have killed 43 young people have died in the protests. We have about 200 people in hospital right now, recovering from the injuries. So by you claiming that role, you're either doing that to get a target on your head, or to go to jail, or to be murdered. And that's why it's leaderless.
Wow. Wanjira, you want to react. Can I, if you don't mind, I wanted to share a moment with our viewers, a moment that was caught on camera from a protest a few years back, and a protest and a moment that has been going viral recently. And then I'll get your reaction. Take a look.
I'm not going. I'm not going. I'm not going. I'm not cooperating and I'm not going.
What is your right?
Why are you arresting me?
Why do you protest?
Why? Give me a reason. I protest because you're killing us.
Who is killing you?
You police. You're killing us in our communities. Poor communities. Why do you want to arrest me? People power! People's power! People's power! When we lose our fear, they lose their power! When we lose our fear, they lose their power! When we lose our fear, when we lose our fear, no more killings! No more killings!
Wanjira, Boni mentioned the atmosphere of fear and the protesters killed in recent weeks. How do you navigate this very dangerous context in order to make your voice heard?
At the beginning, first of all, I wanted to react to the question you asked on leaderless. I want to say that the demands of the protesters have been very clear as per the Constitution of Kenya 2010. Everything we have been saying is the implementation of the Constitution. Accountability of leaders, Chapter 6 on leadership and integrity. Stop killing us, Article 14. Everything, the Constitution of Kenya is our leader. Everything we have been saying is what the Constitution of Kenya is saying. So we do not agree with the insistence on having a leader. The other thing is that navigation of fear. When we started the protest, they were very, very peaceful, extremely peaceful. All we were armed with was a placard, a bottle of water, and creativity, because we saw a lot of creativity also this time with the protesters. And there was infiltration as the protest gained momentum. We saw government people infiltrate, pay goons to come and destroy property, to use this as an excuse to shoot at protesters. But there has always been violence, and revolutions are like this throughout history. We've always seen that people have to die, which is very unnecessary. And even when the president was saying that we have heard you, we were like, did we have to lose so many people for you to hear us? Did it have to get to a point where we're being violated time and time again? Especially after understanding the Constitution of Kenya, Chapter 1, which states that all sovereign power belongs to the people of Kenya, which is the other dynamic that this protest has had, that the Kenyan people understand that all sovereign power is with them. And going to the street is an exercise of that. It's in saying we have a say in what goes in our country and what does not. We are claiming our sovereignty and taking it from our representatives who have failed to represent us time and time again. That video, I think, was about inspiring courage among our people. We are saying we are fearless, we are saying we're tribeless, and we're saying we are leaderless. Yeah. And as you can see, I'm talking about police brutality, which has been rampant in informal settlements in Kenya.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Very, very powerful stuff indeed. And I really like when you say the implementation, the Constitution of Kenya is your leader. Kasmuel, can I ask you about the role of social media? Because clearly it has played a big role here, so much so that the government was a bit threatened and decided to reduce or limit connectivity at some point. How have people been using or misusing social media?
The role of social media cannot be understated or overstated in fueling this revolution that's currently witnessing in Kenya. We exist in such a unique time because the current generation that's driving this revolution is a generation that benefited from a former President Mwai Kibaki's free education program. And it is in the neglect of education, which a lot of the scholars have been talking about, where you find we were reading revolutionary books as set texts in our high school experience. And this was bound to happen. It was just a manifestation of what it is that we read in our books. Social media has allowed us to share views, to exchange ideas, and think as a collective, because we have trends now. Previous generations existed in times when it was harder for you to pass information. They used stuff like letter writing, where letters would take ever so long. Nowadays, you do something, it could be out in the streets in a moment, and it could be very easily known. It has helped us to, one, coordinate activities, two, to inspire courage. And I just realized, because I never knew that was Wanjira, the video that you just played before this, I was just like such a bold girl. And finding out that that's Wanjira today, it's part of the things that inspired me to know that, listen, there are people who care about the country just as much as you think you do. And when the madness of an entire nation disturbs a solitary mind, it's not enough for you to just think that they're mad. So in driving these protests, in documenting, in holding each other accountable, in finding people, it's coordinated the biggest hospital, I would call it hospital without even in quotes, because Medics for Kenya came together and organized over 3,000 doctors around the country to serve people on a voluntary basis. You've seen an activist like Hanifa raise money and go through so effortlessly do due diligence and accountability, which has proved the rot in the National Health Insurance Fund. It's shown us that the people can drive this. But there's also a looming danger to social media, where if we do not investigate it critically, might run us into some interesting challenges, because there are social political issues that we will need to investigate with a bit of nuance, where we've just found a place to collectively channel our rage, and that is to the political class. But there's nuance that ideas like feminism, ideas like economics, that we have to investigate, because there are voices which we're currently letting speak for us that on a daily we would not allow to hear ourselves from. So there has been on the one hand, we are advocating for leaderlessness, but on the other hand, there seems to be people who are interested in besmirching the names of other people who are championing for the cause, trying to bring down the voices of the luminaries. And there's a lot of misinformation that's happening as well. So I've been telling the government that they may have bullets and the money, but we have our ballots and our brains. It's time for us to do our fact checking. It's time for us to rally together and not bring each other down, because the government will thrive in our disunity. It will thrive in the discordance in our voices. But this is a time for us to encourage
for
our
unity and to stick together. We're almost at the end of the show, unfortunately. There's so much more that I would like to ask you about, but we have a limited time. So I want to just end this, giving you guys a chance for a very brief conclusion as to where this movement is going. On X, we found a quote. Martha actually posted this on X. She said, "My cousin told me you people started something you cannot finish, and I was too tired to educate her. Who said it was to happen overnight? Revolution is evolution. It takes time. We are not done." Bonnie, your take. What is next for this movement? Very briefly, please.
So the movement is going towards liberating this country from the hands of thugs and making this country more equal, more just. And that's going to end up Ruto going home, whether through the ballot or through street protests, but he's going to go home. So eventually it's going to build up to the next election. And Kenya's changed forever. It will never be the same again, because its young people have said enough is enough, and you're going to take control of this country and demand accountability. So the country has changed. No matter what happens next week or the next month, this president will never be president again, either through the ballot or through force. He's done.
Kenya will never be the same again. Wanjira, your take.
I completely agree that Kenya will never be the same again after this protest. We are moving towards a trajectory of respecting and upholding human rights, the rule of law, implementing the Constitution of Kenya 2010, and there's absolutely no doubt in our minds that change is inevitable, and we cannot wait to usher in the new Kenya where we are patriotic, we love and support each other, we respect human rights, and we have alternative political leadership that understands accountability.
Change is inevitable. Kasmuel, your take?
They kept on telling us that we are the leaders of tomorrow. I never thought tomorrow would come so soon. It's gotten to the point where it's in my generation that we are doing this. We are holding bad governance to account. We are demanding for accountability. The goal is not oneness. It is unity. In uniting our ideas, we will have differences. We might not get it right all the time. But the fact that we are committed to getting a better Kenya for all of us, for our generation and generations to come, gives me so much peace. Viva to the struggle. The people remain unbowed. We do it scared and scarred. We will not relent.
Very powerful stuff. Thank you so much, Boniface, Wanjira, and Kasmuel, for joining us here on the stream today. It's been great having you guys. And thank you all for watching. Don't forget to stay in touch with us. You can send us your questions and suggestions through the hashtag or the handle AJStream. Take care, and I'll see you soon.